10 years ago, flying around South America was a great adventure, and Lyndon and Neil Blue proved it. Leaving Denver, Colorado, with a total of 200 pilot hours between them, they flew their tiny Piper Tri-Pacer close to erupting volcanoes and labored over the Andes 9 times. They visited primitive headhunters without losing their heads. But after a successful landing on an ice-covered lake at Portillo, Chile, lost their nose wheel to a crevice. 4 exciting months later, the Blue brothers arrived back in the States to land on the cover of Life magazine. And inside, 11 pages were filled with their great adventure, the flight of the Bluebird. Flying around South America is still an adventure. Its natural barriers remain a challenge. The formidable Andes, 5,000 miles long, with peaks over 22,000 feet high. The coastal desert, stretching 3,000 waterless miles from southern Ecuador to central Chile. The Amazon, greatest of rivers, containing 1/5 of all fresh water in the world. And impenetrable rain-soaked jungle, covering an area larger than the United States. Scattered throughout this continent of contrasts are remnants of lost civilizations, primitive peoples emerging into a modern world, huge metropolitan areas, cities of the future. And the only way to see them all is by air. The face of an entire continent changes little in a decade, but Lyndon Blue, now 30, has logged over 5,000 hours, and Piper builds the turbocharged twin Comanche, a symbol of the progress in general aviation. It takes the danger out of adventure and makes it possible for average people to experience the wonders of travel. People like Margot McCann, who had never been in a light plane. A housewife and mother of 4, she will fly over 23,000 miles before the trip is over. Bob McCann, Margot's husband, who recorded the sounds of a continent. Spanish-speaking Tony Allen, who found a sparkling South America through the lens of her Nikon. Her husband, Doug, who immortalized the trip with 2.5 miles of motion picture film. Greg Austin, a young attorney and one of Denver's most eligible bachelors. And 2 turbocharged twin Comanches. The flight of Bluebird II heads south over the countries of Central America. As Izalco, the volcano circled by the Blue brothers 10 years ago, comes into view, Lyndon attempts his first formation rendezvous. Although the result is more like a strafing run, formation flying is almost routine as the flight reaches the rainforest of eastern Nicaragua, and the Bluebird comes to rest on the short grass strip of Hacienda Tierra Dorada. The Blue brothers helped create this plantation out of the jungle wilderness, and Lyndon checks on his progress. Tierra Dorada now exports 900,000 stems of bananas and harvests 1,500 acres of sugarcane each year. In this land of few roads, airplanes are almost a necessity. They quickly bridge the distance between isolated communities and climb into a world of sun and clouds. They penetrate the tropical dusk and safely navigate the blackness of night. The Bluebird greets the sun off Costa Rica and soon looks down on the Panama Canal. 3 hours to the south, it circles the red tile roofs of Medellin, Colombia, the home of Alejandro and Valerie Echevarria, and of others who assure that Latin American hospitality will never be forgotten. There's a feeling of isolation in Medellin, an awareness of the distances to other places. It creates in its people a dependence on one another. They dispel the isolation by dancing to the music of Paris and Rio. and place their own stars in the sky. South America's great surprise is its immensity. At 215 miles an hour, it is 3 hours and 40 minutes from Medellin to Guayaquil, Ecuador, and 3 hours and 40 minutes more to Lima, Peru. And Lima isn't even a third of the way down the coast. There are incomparable mountains, like El Misti, towering more than 19,000 feet behind Arequipa. As the Bluebird streaks across the Altiplano at 15,000 feet, it passes lakes higher than any of the peaks in the continental United States. Over the divide to the Amazon watershed, past mountainsides terraced by the Incas 1,000 years ago, down through the thin air to the short gravel strip at Cusco, Peru, 11,000 feet above sea level. In the 15th century, Cusco was one of the largest cities in the world, the capital of the Inca Empire. Sacked by Pizarro, leveled and built upon by succeeding conquistadores, it now contains little of its former Inca grandeur. But 70 miles to the north, hidden in the cloud-shrouded Andes overlooking the Amazon basin, lies the magnificent ruin of the ancient city of Machu Picchu. So inaccessible that the Incas were able to conceal its existence from the Spaniards for 3 centuries, Machu Picchu clings to a narrow saddle 2,000 feet above the Urubamba River. It has been little restored. Except for the removal of vegetation, it remains almost exactly as it looked to Yale historian Hiram Bingham when he discovered it in 1911. Machu Picchu, or Old Mountain, was planned and created with unbelievable effort and skill. It took generations to build. Using implements of stone, polishing with sand abrasives, craftsmen tediously shaped each rock to exact predetermined dimensions. Without mortar, their convex-concave adjoining sides fit so precisely that buildings have survived the earthquakes and erosion of centuries. An aqueduct supplied fresh water to 16 baths carved out of solid rock. Corn, vegetables, and even fruit trees grew on the stone terraces, providing enough food for a population of thousands. Machu Picchu was dedicated to Viracocha, the supreme sun god, and the stone sundial, to which the sun was ceremoniously tied, overlooks the city below. To guard the city from attack, a signal station was maintained on Huayna Picchu, Young Mountain, 1,000 feet above. Perfect steps were hewn out of the native rock or carved and carefully fitted into place. With almost perpendicular stairs and entry only through narrow caves, with its own terraces and water supply, Huayna Picchu was impregnable. But no civilization lasts forever. When the Incas fell before the Spaniards, their wisdom, knowledge, and skills vanished. Today, their descendants, the Quechuas, are barely able to survive in this harsh environment where the Incas thrived. At the village of Pisac, they bring their products to market on Sunday, and in age-old ceremonies, maintain strong ties with their past. Even their daily existence is half a century away from the sleek aircraft which so easily conquer their Andes. South again to Lake Titicaca, at 12,500 feet, the world's highest navigable lake. Over the Bolivian Altiplano, at 15,000 feet, where herds of llamas and alpacas scatter before the Bluebird. And suddenly, La Paz, a bustling modern city, wedged into a dry, oversized arroyo. The airport is located on the plain above and has the distinction of being the world's highest, 13,358 feet above sea level. As at most of the major airports in South America, La Paz has modern refueling facilities with underground tanks and filters. But for some reason, the nozzles are almost always too large. Very few light planes are seen in La Paz, and Lyndon explains the Bluebird's performance to some interested airport personnel, while Greg charts the course south to still higher country. Takeoff at the highest airport in the world proves to be no problem for the turbocharged twin Comanches. Pulling sea-level power, they are airborne in about 3,500 feet. Their 19,000-foot single-engine capability is comforting when flying over rugged terrain 16,000 feet high. And the tendency is to feel smug when a comfortable cruise altitude is several thousand feet higher than the nearby 22,000-foot peaks. But oxygen is not so easy to obtain in South America and must be conserved. The 215 miles per hour cruise is also a convenience. In only 7 flying hours, the Bluebird enters the highest, most formidable region of the Andes. At first just a tiny dot in the center of the picture, it quickly climbs above the moderate turbulence to 24,000 feet, above the highest mountain in the Western Hemisphere, Aconcagua. At nearby Portillo, the original Bluebird broke its nose gear in a crevice. This time, 6 people, in comfort and safety, looked down on the mighty Aconcagua, towering more than 4 miles above sea level. At Santiago, the Bluebird and her sister ship are thoroughly checked to make sure every part is in perfect shape. And Piper's representative, Raul Fabres, explains why flying is so popular in Chile.
In a country like ours, where we don't have enough roads to cover most of the really interesting spots like lakes or mountain resorts, a plane is the only way to get around, and I hope that you'll have a good chance to do it.
Chile is one of the most air-oriented countries in South America, and many farmers and ranchers depend on private aircraft for their transportation. Juan Luis Edwards can reach the Strip on his beautiful 5,000-acre ranch 400 miles south of Santiago in only 2 hours. Senor Edwards was host to the Blue Brothers on their original flight. On this trip, he introduces Lyndon to Ed Blackburn, a distant neighbor, by means of his ham radio.
Yeah, Lyndon, Roger, old chap, you'll be very welcome if you come over. I got some nice cold beer in the fridge there. So if you like cold beer the way you Americans like it, it's here waiting for you.
This valley has a Mediterranean climate. It closely resembles California's San Joaquin Valley. Senor Edwards raises some of the finest thoroughbreds in South America and displays them with great pride. Chile is famous for its wines, and Senor Edwards produces some of the finest. He presents a prize bottle of 1940 Burgundy as a token of Chilean hospitality. 100 miles to the south, on Ed Blackburn's ranch, the most interesting display of horsepower is his 4-cylinder Indian motorcycle. For longer trips, Ed uses a Piper Tri-Pacer. Just like the original Bluebird, it brings back many memories for Lyndon. Raul Fabres can never resist an opportunity to fly into Chile's Lake District and joins the flight at Blackburn's to guide the Bluebird and her sister ship through the still evening air toward the Southern Cross and the famous resort of Antamalal on Lake Villarica. Mount Villarica, a very active volcano, provides an imposing backdrop for water skiing. The ride is far rougher than anything encountered while airborne, but Lyndon makes it back to the dock safely. Almost. The gardens of Antamalal thrive in the mild climate. and according to Raoul, huge trout thrive in the waters that feed the lake. The inhabitants of Pucón, at the base of Mount Villarica, say there is no danger as long as the volcano is smoking, but why take a chance? The Bluebird leaves the volcanic ash runway to climb above and beyond the smoldering cone. Some of the most beautiful scenery in the world is found in Chile's lake country. The area has Swiss charm and Spanish hospitality. Its mountains rival Fuji. Within the boundaries of Chile are 515 mountains higher than any in the continental United States. While the height of the Andes decreases in the south of Chile, volcanoes like Villarica rise out of the lowland plain one after another as the flight heads for Puerto Montt, 10,000 miles from home. The most perfect of these volcanoes is Osorno. It guards the pass to Argentina, a green glacial lake at its base. This is the heart of the Lake District. Isolated, fish-filled lakes, joined by rushing streams, separated by rugged glaciated mountains. Here, Raoul must leave the formation to return to Santiago. Eastward through the pass, the Green Mountains give way to brown plains and Argentina. But there's never enough time to see everything, and the sprawling, sophisticated metropolis of Buenos Aires passes below. 800 miles to the north, the slow-moving waters of the Paraná suddenly divide along a 2.5-mile escarpment and plunge farther than the height of Niagara to the gorge below. The Falls of Blood. Billions of tons of sediment from the red earth of Brazil mix with the Paraná on its 1,000-mile path to Iguazu and pour over the brink with incredible force. The water literally explodes on the rocks below, creating gusts of over 40 knots, hurling spray out and up to shroud Iguazu in a perpetual mist. The thunder of the falls envelops Linden, and the force of the spray soaks into the skin. But even this thrill is small compared to flying the Bluebird below the lip of the gorge, up to and through the swirling spray over Iguazu. High over the jungle again, it is time to relax, time to record the impressions of a lifetime, to share the experience with others. Time to look down on progressive Sao Paulo, South America's fastest growing city. Just around the corner is Rio de Janeiro, the most beautiful city in the world. Below is Copacabana and Sugarloaf. Below is a young and vital beat of South America. Miss Brazil, Cristina Rizzi, and her twin sister Elizabeth greet the twin Comanches at the Santos Dumont Airport, and then to Copacabana for a closer look at the scenery.
Barra da Tijuca já mexeu. A onda agora é deixa cair no elevador. Vamos embora.
Yes, Rio is beautiful women and beautiful children. Bronze children of the sun, enjoying the sand and the sea and the sound of their guitars. Rio is the bossa nova and the samba. Rio is shopping and the discotheque. Rio is the heartbeat of Brazil. But the capital of Brazil is 600 miles north of Rio in the cool, dry air of a high red earth plateau. The city of Brasilia was started 5 years ago, designed and built from the ground up as a seat of government and a monument to the future of Brazil. Its population will be 500,000. 350,000 are already in residence. Its plan is the shape of an airplane. Homes, apartments, shops, and offices form the wings. The Capitol and government office buildings are the forward fuselage, capped by the presidential Palace of Dawn. Brasilia points the way to the future of Brazil. It focuses attention away from Rio to the rich, undeveloped heartland, to the vast, uninhabited jungle stretching 3,000 miles to the north, where powerful ADF stations are the only link with the present, where towering cumulus rise to 50,000 feet, and the Bluebird must go underneath, weaving its way between the torrents of tropical rain, to Santarém on the Amazon. Ocean-going steamers sail 3,000 miles up this greatest of all rivers to Iquitos, where the Amazon is as wide as the Mississippi at its mouth. Some of these waters came from the Andes, flowed past Machu Picchu, and joined rivers draining an area larger than the United States. When they reach the sea, they will push back the salt water of the Atlantic 200 miles from the coast. At Manaus, the Amazon and the Rio Negro join, but do not mix. The inky liquid of the Rio Negro, unwilling to become a part of the silt-filled water of the Amazon. At the turn of the century, Manaus was a European metropolis in an oasis of rubber plantations. Its mosaic plaza and opera house are now ghosts of its past. With World War II came artificial rubber, and the pulse beat of Manaus slowed. Today, it sleeps beneath 2 decades of tropical decay. Natives guide their dugouts through the sluggish water, and only the banana market reveals the activity that Brazil's main artery deserves. Several miles away, a fisherman reluctantly shared his catch with a piranha. And small tributaries are filled with the hush of the jungle, a giant Disneyland for adults. Home is a mere 5,000 miles away, and there are yet lifetimes of sights to see. Coral ring tropical islands, turquoise shoals in the Caribbean, secluded harbors, sunsets in the West Indies. But we have retraced the flight of the original Bluebird around South America, and time is running out. In 31 days, the flight of Bluebird II covered over 23,000 miles, approximately the distance around the world. It touched down in 14 countries, flew over 9 more. Its passengers saw more than they possibly could by any other means of transportation in just 1 month. The tall mountains, the enchanting lakes, the modern cities, the ancient ruins, and the people of this vast and varied continent. They saw the faces of South America.